Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Worship and Theology podcast. Here we exist to equip worship leaders for spirit and truth worship. It would mean so much to me if you could like and subscribe to the podcast, and even more so, if you got an extra second, leave a positive review. Positive reviews really help people to see that we're having some good conversations here. So if you could do that, that would mean so much to me. Today we are talking about eschatology, or the study of the end times. Now, I want to start out by saying that I consider myself what I like to call an eschatological minimalist. So, as you're going to see in a second here, as we begin talking about the end times, the end things, the end of days, that it's wild and it's a mystery that's hidden in the heart of God. And we could spend lots of time to unpack that mystery and make our charts from Daniel's 70 weeks and ascertain what the statues are in Ezekiel and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is this is hidden in the heart of God. Mystery in the Bible is not like a mystery like we think about it, like there's, somebody did it and there's clues and you got to follow these clues. But a mystery in the Bible, rather, is something that's hidden in the heart of God and then is one day released. It's like a Beyonce album. It's dropped with little to no marketing. There it is. The mystery of Christ and the church dropped. The mystery of husband and wife, the marriage union representing Jesus dropped. These are mysteries hidden in the heart of God. So this is hidden. Now, the Bible does say it's the duty of kings to search out the hidden things. So I think it's fun to talk about. I think it's fun to think through. And, I do think that it has some impact on how and why we do things. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But the study of the end times are basically asking the questions, what is heaven? What is hell? What is the second death that the Bible talks about, the great lake of fire? What about the second coming of Jesus? What about the second resurrection of the dead when supposedly all of us are going to be raised to newness of life? I think in our modern context, it's a big question of, is the rapture real? Is the idea that God's just going to pull his people out of the earth before this tribulation happens? Is that a reality? And what about the millennial reign? Is there a 1,000-year reign of Jesus? Is that something that's happening or has happened already, or is it yet to come? These are the questions that are raised by the study of eschatology. Now, I want to go through four basic views when it comes to eschatology, and I'm going to try and do this quickly. Again, this could be a conversation that could literally last for millennia. So I'm going to try and keep this under 10 minutes. So here we go. There are four basic views when it comes to eschatology. Number one is called preterism. Preterism is the idea that everything that we see within prophetic literature, we're talking about Daniel, Ezekiel, Revelation, we're talking about some of the unfulfilled prophecies of Isaiah, Jeremiah, Joel, Malachi. We're talking about some of these secondary or dual fulfillment type prophecies. The idea of preterism is that these have all already happened. These things have all already happened. We might find ourselves within the millennial reign of Christ. We might find ourselves after that point, but we're really not sure. View number two is historicism. Now, historicism is basically the belief that everything that we see in those prophetic scriptures are currently happening to us, and that every symbol, every name, every detail is actually talking about something that historically has happened or will happen. That's really kind of an interesting view, because it, basically makes the argument that the statues that we see in the book of Daniel and the symbols that we see in the book of Revelation actually are pointing to real historical figures and real historical events. Pretty interesting. The third one is futurism, that everything in these prophetic texts are about to happen. They're going to happen sometime in the future, and we're looking forward to them. And when they do, it's going to be obvious and clear that this is what's happening. The fourth and final view is called idealism, or what I've commonly heard is, the allegorical view, and that's that all these things that are happening in Revelation, Daniel, etc., are actually symbols to teach us greater lessons about how we should live. And that they're not going to happen in real time. They're not going to happen in reality, but that these are symbolic to teach us things about the way God moves and operates. As you could see, just in those 4 basic views, the belief system of the eschatology is so vast and so wide, and that's because God purposefully has hidden it from us. That's what he does with mysteries. In fact, Jesus said, "No man knows the day or hour, not even him, when Jesus would return." We just don't know. We don't have enough information. And this stuff is fun to read, and it's fun to go through, and it's fun to talk about, Jesus in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, and each of these churches that he references, talks about a period of time in church history. Like, I've nerded out on all this stuff to come out the other side saying simply, I'm an eschatological minimalist. These things are not going to be central or core to my belief system and my theology. I'm not going to let these viewpoints about eschatology schism relationships. I'm not going to call people, heretics because they believe that where the millennial reign already happened, or the abomination of desolation, where the temple was sacrilegiously attacked. I'm not gonna separate from my brothers and sisters because of these beliefs. So when it comes to the second coming of Christ, we just don't know. We do know, however, that every single writer of the New Testament believed that the second coming was imminent and that they needed to be ready. And I think that needs to be the heartbeat of Christians, Jesus followers, and needs to be the heart of the church, that we are ready and we are treating this thing like it is coming, and it is coming quickly, and it is coming urgently. And we don't want to be like one of those 7 virgins who ran out of oil. Like, we want to be the ones who are ready to receive Jesus. We want to be ready for his second return. When it comes to heaven and hell, we just did a podcast on the doctrine of hell, and the doctrine of heaven is probably something we should talk about soon. But the idea of heaven and hell is that these are real destinies that we need to have in mind, and they're real. The way I believe about heaven, you guys probably picked up by now, is that heaven is coming to earth. And I think that this is the point of eschatology where I would say this is the why it affects us as leaders. This is the why it should probably change our minds, and we probably should build some kind of minimalistic framework, because it really does empower how we do future ministry. My belief of the end times is going to empower how I do ministry tomorrow, how I minister to people tomorrow. Let me unpack that a little bit. If you believe in a rapture, and the rapture is basically based on a verse in 1 Thessalonians, and one thing that Jesus said are basically the crux of why the rapture exists. Jesus was talking about you're grinding some mill, and the person next to you is no longer there. Now, I'm not going to make a case for or against the rapture because, again, I'm an eschatological minimalist. But if you do believe in a rapture, let's say you believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, that God's going to rescue his people out of the earth before it gets really bad and he kind of unleashes, all the evils of the universe, then how is that going to affect your ministry? Well, you're going to believe that the earth is, we're not going to make it. It's going to get worse. God's going to have to wipe us out. And so you're going to do ministry that way. You're going to do ministry with the mentality that it's all going to burn anyways, so let the earth go to hell in a handbasket. But if you believe, and this is kind of where I land on some of these topics, if you believe that the church actually continues to be this force that overtakes the evil of the world and then passes the kingdom off to Jesus, and he fully establishes it by sitting on a throne and ruling and reigning, well, that's going to change the way that you do ministry. If you believe that God's going to create a new earth and to wipe out the old earth, then you're not really worried about the old earth. But if you believe that God is going to create a new earth by restoring and redeeming the current earth, then you're going to take care of the earth. You see what I'm saying? And I think that this is kind of the purpose of eschatology. And I think this is why it's probably worth thinking through and developing some, minor, minimal viewpoints on, because we need to be a church that's on the move. And our theology, our belief about God, our understanding that God is someone who makes things new and resurrects what's been dead and makes things better and is at the work of redeeming all things, restoring all things to himself, it has to reconcile with our belief of the end times. And so while I don't care if people believe in the rapture, I like to have a discussion about it. And I want to know how it colors the way they do things, the way they minister. I want to know how it affects the opening words on a Sunday morning as they're welcoming the church. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, welcome to church, enjoy it while it lasts. And it's another thing to say, hey, welcome to church. This is people on mission to make it on earth as it is in heaven. So I think, eschatology can be useful for that.